Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince is Square Enix's attempt to recreate the cute critter-collectathon of Pokemon with its own popular Dragon Quest IP. It's also a prequel to one of that series' classic entries, Dragon Quest IV, as well as the third numbered entry in the Dragon Quest Monsters spin-off series according to its Japanese box art. And it's already one of the most successful games of 2023 here in Japan, so much so that physical copies of this game could not meet consumer demand, with Square themselves suggesting fans download it digitally instead. So, a game in a spin-off series I wasn't even aware of existed until this game released, has become an absolute phenomenon here. Of course, that meant I had to do what I do best, sit on my butt and play it to completion. Now that I have, here's the review. Is Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince worth the $60 investment for curious gamers? In this review, you'll find the surprising answer to that question as we go in depth. By the end of the review, you'll know if it's worth picking up. With that out of the way, let's dive in. Players take the role of Saro, the exiled son of monarch Randolfo the Tyrant. For standing up to his father, Saro is cursed by him, no longer able to slay monsters. In the universe of Dragon Quest, this is basically a death sentence, where warriors must be able to slay monsters for their survival. While sequestered in a peaceful village, after monsters under Randolfo's command finally find the exiled prince, Saro must learn the art of monster wrangling, catching Pokemon in Pokeballs, scouting monsters to fight on his behalf. Teaming up with a nameless elf and young thief, Saro and friends must travel the land of Terestia, with Saro battling and scouting increasingly powerful monsters before finally confronting his father. This is a long, epic, and decidedly Dragon Quest journey. On your way to the final confrontation, you'll gradually unlock new areas to explore, with new monsters to scout, solve the locals' problems for them, go to Pokemon gyms to collect badges, go to Colosseum tournaments to increase your reputation, take down bosses, and so on as the overarching plot slowly unfolds. While I do make jokes about it being essentially a Dragon Quest version of Pokemon, this is the easiest way to describe it. I'll return to the story and characters later, but this comparison to Pokemon leads me nicely into talking about the gameplay. On the surface, the gameplay loop looks very similar to Pokemon. Explore a new area, scout monsters, take down the boss, and repeat. Defeating the boss or Colosseum challenge makes the local monsters easier to catch, making it easier to fill out your Monsterpedia or to add to your ranks in battle. And battle is where this differs greatly from Pokemon. It is an entirely different beast. These are 4-on-4 battles where monsters auto-attack their opponents. Before or during battle, you can change their tactics, meaning you can have them focus on attacking or healing or buffing or debuffing. Outside of battle, you can even adjust how frequently your monsters use certain moves. This means there is a deep level of strategy to be found here and is decidedly different from its Pokemon counterpart. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to get to the point where you can understand the strategic aspect of DQ monsters. It was at least 10 to 15 hours of gameplay where my understanding of this battle system and the challenge level of the game got to a point where I was making the most of the strategic options available to me. This will be a recurring theme throughout this review. It takes a long time to get going. For those first few hours, it was like the game was playing itself. I didn't even have to make a single choice during battles, and opponents' monsters' levels were so low that it felt like an entirely passive gameplay experience. While perhaps this slow and easy beginning is to accommodate younger players or those unfamiliar with RPGs, for most people playing this game, that is to say fans of Dragon Quest, this is far too unengaging. Like a good movie, the beginning of a game should be fun and exciting enough for you to want to see it through, not feel like a chore you have to grind through to get to the good stuff. I was questioning why I even bought this game at the beginning, but once I stuck it out, I did find that good stuff. And that good stuff is the core gameplay loop. Battling, scouting, grinding, synthesizing, and grinding even more. What's synthesizing, you ask? Well, it's another point of differentiation between this and Pokemon. After a few hours of gameplay, you get the option to fuse two monsters into a more powerful monster. Similar to fusion in the Persona series, your new monster will inherit the skills of its parents' monsters that you have already grinded for. Sadly, unlike Persona Fusion and more like getting an egg in Pokemon, your new monster will be level 1, meaning to truly unlock its power you have to get back out there and level grind it to unlock its true potential. Like Pokemon, battling with stronger members in your party will level it up quickly, but for me, not quickly enough. For a monster fusion mechanic, I want to unlock the power that the parent monsters already have, but monster synthesis in this game is like egg breeding in Pokemon if getting an egg meant killing telling the parents too. While I love the idea of synthesizing monsters, doing so results in having to grind more. And a big part of how much you'll enjoy DQ monsters is how much you enjoy level grinding. I know a lot of Pokemon and RPG fans expect this, but me personally, I felt like a lot of it is grinding. If you get to a boss, you'll find yourself battling over and over to level up your monsters to beat it, then do the same thing when you get to the next area. People I speak to who love DQ monsters love this spin-off series specifically for this reason: the thrill of the grind. It has a bit of a hypnotic, entrancing quality, flying through battle after battle. At least battles proceed quickly and can be played in double speed, so they don't waste too much time. After those first 10 hours, I could start to see why people love this grind so much, and I could start to enjoy it too. But if you want to cut down on grinding, you have to figure out how to maximize your monster's potential. It's part math, part logic, and if you're a dumbass like me, you won't be able to make heads or tails of it. You'll need to consult some online guides to fully understand maximizing your monster's potential, but for me, all these numbers and combinations just go right over my shiny bald head. As a result, I just brute forced my way through it on instinct, which got the job done, but I'm sure for those more familiar with the series or actually intelligent people will enjoy the complex and deep monster customization Dragon Quest Monsters offers. This is something to consider if the gameplay of this game is right for you. This should definitely not be your first Dragon Quest game, so I'd start with the mainline installment Dragon Quest XI first. Next, if you think this is just a Dragon Quest themed Pokemon, think again. It's a lot more complicated than that. And finally, there's a big time investment required to grind through it and progress the story. These are entirely subjective things, and I know this game won't be for everyone. For me personally, once it grew on me, I found myself addicted to the grind, but still was unable to tell if I was making the most of my monsters. Regardless, I could progress the story, so even if you're not good at these kind of games, you can still power through it. And speaking of the story, let's revisit that aspect. Remember I mentioned that recurring theme throughout this review? Well, here it is again. This story takes a long time to get going. The opening cinematics take an eternity to get through and are not told the most effectively. I found myself completely lost at the beginning. Perhaps this is because I'm not familiar with Dragon Quest IV, but I think its subpar writing and direction is partially to blame. It's initially long and unclear, but the quality of storytelling does improve as it gets going. I had the exact same issue with the story of Dragon Quest XI. I thought the long opening act of that game was also long and uninteresting, so if you've played that, that'll give you some idea of what to expect. As for the characters themselves, for someone with no connection to Dragon Quest IV, I really did not enjoy the character of Saro. This is because he is a silent protagonist, but this silence is at odds with his characterization. He's a person who's been cursed and deeply wronged by his father and is out for revenge, but you can't get a sense of that on display here. As he doesn't say anything and isn't animated dramatically, you don't really feel that rage or emotion at all. While I know this is the trope of RPG protagonists, who start off as mostly passive characters who grow throughout the story, Saro begins as an active protagonist with a goal. And he's already been established in Dragon Quest IV as a villain, so there was an opportunity for the developers to treat this prequel as the epic origin story it should be, not just the same as any other RPG. Saro is almost like a non-character in his own story, and I wonder if fans of the character will be disappointed. As I'm not familiar with Dragon Quest IV, please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. The supporting cast fares better, especially Rose the elf, who serves as the main companion, and she has an emotional arc of her own, and is a downright lovely character. The next companion is the stupidly named thief Toilen Trouble. That's right, Toilen Trouble. In that name alone is a perfect example of the Dragon Quest series' campy writing, in which NPCs speak with lisps or in rhymes. I don't know what they were thinking with that name, but his arc also provides a great source of conflict with Saro, and I found their dynamic more interesting than the overall quest to usurp the evil tyrant Randolfo. To sum up the story, it's a camp, cliched fantasy adventure in the key of Dragon Quest. If you've ever played any other DQ game before, you know exactly what to expect, which makes it disappointing that this villain origin story was not that exciting, and still conformed rigidly to Dragon Quest tropes. This makes me glad that the upcoming Dragon Quest XII will take on a darker tone, and that will hopefully be the Dragon Quest game that shakes up the series formula. But anyway, take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm not the biggest Dragon Quest fan or expert out there, despite this t-shirt, so please let me know what you think of Dragon Quest storytelling down below in the comments. Anyway, back to Dragon Quest Monsters. While gameplay and story are quite subjective based on your own preferences, there are 2 points here which are objectively disappointing: performance and music. Before playing this game, I had hoped this review would end with me saying its performance put that of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to shame, but sadly, I was disappointed. Dragon Quest Monsters' performance on Switch is about as bad as that game. The frame rate slows to a sludgy crawl when running around, and background monsters pop in and out at the shortest of draw distances. For me, this is an unacceptable issue, just like Pokemon. Square Enix is a major Japanese studio with ample resources, and the Dragon Quest IP is one of the biggest brands in gaming, especially here in its native Japan. It deserves more development time and optimization than the state this game was delivered in. While yes, the Switch is aging rapidly in its 7th year, but in that same 7th year, Tears of the Kingdom was released, which also does not run perfectly, but it's a much more sophisticated game graphically, and runs a hell of a lot better than Dragon Quest Monsters. There's no excuse for a game looking and performing this badly, and this is a major L from Square Enix. Still, just like Pokemon, fans are going to buy this game regardless, and are still gonna eat it up. Personally, I'm a big fan of unique and visually stunning open environments, and the performance issues only ruin that part of the game for me. One of my favorite areas in DQ Monsters is the Circle of Indulgence, a kingdom made of cakes, candy, ice cream, and all kinds of sweets. It's a game environment I've never seen in Pokemon or Dragon Quest before, and it's full of charm. Pancake-stacked dungeons and cake castles loom large over the player, full of slime enemies made of chocolate or ghosts made of ice cream. The art team really put their all into it, but it's hard to enjoy it or feel immersed when it runs like sludge and enemies just pop in and out. I expect better from big franchises. If Zelda can pull it off, so should Dragon Quest. And the next big letdown is the music. While series composer Koichi Sugiyama has passed away, this does not excuse the decision by Square Enix to not use any original music. That's right, all music in this game is recycled from previous Dragon Quest games. Dragon Quest XI had the controversy of using the 90s era MIDI music, a decision which was reversed in the enhanced version in which fully orchestrated compositions were added in. Sadly, there is not a shred of a real instrument anywhere near Dragon Quest Monsters. It's all recycled MIDI music, and with respects to the late composer, in 2023 in a major release like this, it's poxy and totally bland, and there's not even that much variety here. It feels like a very small pool of recycled tracks. While I'm sure this is nostalgic for a lot of DQ fans, those same fans would surely want some music with a bit more oomph and less repetitiveness than this. Like I already said, a major studio and IP cutting corners like this is simply not good enough. Longtime fans of the channel know how important game music is to me, and for me, the music in DQ Monsters was a massive letdown. Alright, time to wrap this up. Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince is a fun Dragon Quest spin-off that provides hours upon hours of engaging content. After a slow start, it has an addictive gameplay loop that will reward you with more powerful monsters and challenging battles. However, this is not a good entry point to the Dragon Quest series for newcomers, and there are far too many shortcomings here for a major developer's flagship IP. The story is nice but not outstanding, the visuals are betrayed by sloppy performance, and the music is nostalgic but outdated. For longtime fans of Dragon Quest, it's a fun but derivative experience, but please keep your expectations squarely in check. So, thanks for watching to the end. Have you played Dragon Quest Monsters? What's your favourite Dragon Quest game? Whatever your thoughts may be, please let me know in the comments down below. For more game reviews like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Once again, thanks for watching, have a good one, and I will see you next time.